welcome back. We are diving into some pretty interesting stuff today.
Yeah.
Yes, we're looking at how social media companies are figuring out like what information is reliable and what isn't, and how that process is maybe changing, or at least there's some news about how it's changing.
Right.
And that also kind of brings in the question of like who gets to decide, what is true and what isn't.
Exactly.
So to start with that, we have some sources here about Meta, formerly Facebook, of course, and how they are changing their approach.
Yeah, they're getting rid of their fact-checking system,
Right,
the way
yeah.
they used to do it,
Yeah.
and now they're kind of turning to the users to moderate content.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they're taking a page out of X's book.
Yeah, formerly Twitter.
Yeah.
They have this thing called community notes,
Right, exactly.
and so it's kind of like that.
Yeah. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. But one of the things that our sources point out is that like not everybody is happy about this.
Yeah, not at all.
And there are some traditional media companies like the BBC
Yeah.
and the Times who are like kind of sounding the alarm.
Right. They're worried. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're worried about kind of a free for all
Right, yeah.
where misinformation could run rampant.
Exactly. So that's kind of like the big question that we're looking at today. Like,
Right.
is it better to kind of like go with the will of the people and let the community decide, or to have this like select group of people who are supposedly, experts?
Yeah, the fact checkers
Yeah.
deciding what's what.
Exactly. And I think, looking at our sources here, one of the things that they point out is this fear
Right.
that the public can be easily manipulated.
Yeah, and I understand that concern, right? You see all this stuff about, fake news and echo chambers and people just kind of getting swept up and whatever.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but the thing is, like, I think we also have to consider, like, what are the potential benefits of this kind of community-based system?
Okay. Yeah.
Like, one of the things that it could bring is, like, way more transparency,
Uh-huh.
right? Because right now it's like this black box.
With the fact checkers.
Yeah, we don't really know, like, who these fact checkers are or what their biases are.
Right.
But if you have a community-based system, it's like everyone can see what's going on.
Okay. So it's more open.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about this idea of like, different perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, that's another huge potential benefit, right? Because instead of having just this small group of people deciding what's true, you have like a whole range of viewpoints
Right.
contributing to the process. And I think that could lead to like a more nuanced and balanced approach.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think it's a more democratic way of doing things, right?
Yeah.
Like, why shouldn't people have a say in what they see and what they believe?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because one of the things that kind of jumps out at me is like this almost like inherent distrust
Yeah.
that seems to be coming from these traditional media companies.
Hmm.
Like it's almost as if they're saying,
Like, they don't trust the public.
yeah, like we can't trust the public to figure this out on their own.
Right.
We had to have these like, gatekeepers.
Yeah, the experts.
Yeah.
The authorities.
Right, exactly. And it makes you wonder like, what does that say about their view of the public?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Like, do they think that people are just like sheep?
Yeah. Or maybe it's not even that they think people are sheep.
Okay.
Maybe it's more like they just don't want to give up their power.
Okay. Yeah.
Because for a long time, they've been the ones who decide what's news and what's not.
Right.
What's true and what's not.
Yeah. They've been the gatekeepers.
Exactly. And now social media is kind of challenging that.
And they don't like it.
Well, they have to adapt, right?
Yeah.
Because the world is changing.
Yeah. And, one of the things that our sources mention is this idea of like ulterior motives.
Oh, yeah.
Like, are there hidden agendas here?
Oh, I think there are always hidden agendas, right? I
Okay.
mean, let's be real. Like, nobody's completely neutral.
Okay.
Everyone has their own biases and their own interests.
So how do we wade through that?
Well, I think the key is transparency.
Okay.
We need to be really critical and ask ourselves, like, who's behind this?
Mm-hmm.
What are their motivations? Are they trying to manipulate us, or are they genuinely trying to help us?
Okay. So we need to be like super aware.
Yeah, super aware. And also, I think it's important to remember that, like, truth is complicated.
Yeah.
Like, especially in this day and age
Yeah.
where we're bombarded with information from all sides.
Right.
It's not always easy to tell what's real and what's not.
And like you were saying before,
Yeah.
We have all these different perspectives.
Yeah, and they all claim to have the truth.
Right.
So how do we sort through all of that?
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
So where does this leave us then?
Well, I think it leaves us with more questions than answers,
Okay.
but I think that's okay.
All right.
Because I think it's important to ask these questions and to have these discussions.
Okay.
Because the way we consume information is changing.
Yeah, it's changing rapidly.
Yeah, and we need to be prepared for that.
So what can our listeners do?
Well, I think the most important thing is to be an active participant.
Okay.
Don't just passively consume information.
Don't be a sheep.
Exactly. Question everything.
Oh,
Think
yeah.
critically, consider multiple perspectives, and be willing to have open and honest dialogue with people who might disagree with you.
I like that. That's a good takeaway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not just about like, reading a headline
No.
and then sharing it without even thinking about it.
Exactly. We need to be more thoughtful
Yeah.
and more engaged.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's a great place to leave it for today. So thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
And we'll catch you next time.
See you later.